Hello and welcome to Travel Market Life. In this episode, we are looking at technology trends in travel and hospitality as we explore acquisition, consolidation and development of the technology market in the UK and abroad. Joining us will be Andrew Metcalf, CTO of Access Hospitality.
Welcome to Travel Market Life, your companion for industry insights and professional business development. Travel Market Life. Join us by webcast, video or podcast.
So technology, we've been talking about it from a perspective of AI a lot within our trends. How are you guys looking at technology at the moment within Travel Zoo? Got an eye on anything at the moment?
Oh, hi everyone, by the way. I should say hi. Lovely to see you all again. I think in the time I've been at Travel Zoo, we've seen probably the most transformational change using technology. So I joined a business that, has been established for over 25 years using very custom built, in-house built, developed technology. And in that time, I've seen us move to more mainstream off-the-shelf products, which is probably against the grain of the business, but it's been transformational. It's changed the business and it's also saved a lot of money. And that is continuing today. So there's lots going on at the moment. And I can't lie, AI is part of that.
I mean, there's been different talks about sort of like how AI is going to replace certain roles within a business. Are you looking at it from that perspective, from sort of filling gaps in skills, or are you looking at it to just help bolster some of the team's productivity and efficiencies?
So we were quite quick to look at ChatGPT and at the efficiency gains it could help us with. So things like, we have a lot of copywriters, we have a lot of content going out. So fact checking. And we've actually found that ChatGPT has been very useful for things like that. So we've definitely used AI in that sense.
Right. Okay. So we got Claire Steiner back. And so looking at technology then, across the board, across the multitude of projects that you're involved with, where do you, and what's your focus in and around technology and try to support your, clients and projects utilize it?
So I think for me, there's two parts to it. One is with my HR hat on and how technology and AI, as we always say, is influencing recruitment trends and talent shortage issues and how it's changing the face of jobs. And we already, I think, are not as nervous as maybe we were a year ago that AI is going to take all the jobs away. It's more a case of we need to adapt to it. So I'm quite excited about watching what's going to happen over the coming years, because it will be years. And there will be jobs in the next 10 years that we haven't even thought of yet that will come to the fruition. I think the other side of it for me actually is around young people and education. A lot of young people who choose tourism as education have a real interest in the technology side. They want to find out what's going on. So we're starting to see a lot more embedding of that into the curriculum. And I'm working with a number of universities and things like that. But I think also there's an excitement around entrepreneurship opportunities for young people. We have the UK is very good in that space, I believe. I really do believe that. And I think a lot of young people are seeing this as an opportunity to really focus on what entrepreneurial opportunities there are within the tourism and hospitality space for startups and that sort of thing. So I think it's an exciting time and it's bringing exciting things on both of those areas.
Do you think it can be a double-edged sword, though? Because we've seen that technology has allowed people from anywhere to be able to access courses remotely and online, to be able to develop their careers in very different ways. If you're an introvert, you can use technology and be part of a business. But then at the same time, you sort of perhaps need certain skills or it sort of replaces administrative stuff that we might have needed young people for initially, the data inputting side of things, where you might have initially got a rung on the ladder. Is there a worry there?
No, I don't think so, because I think one thing that actually technology allows us to do is open up our arena for different types of young people and different skills that they bring. Neurodiversity is a massive area for me. I think that this will allow a lot of people who traditionally might not have seen tourism and hospitality as an area that they can work in, the ability now through technology and AI, as the same with disabilities as well, visible or non. And so I think, that opens up that. And we have an aging population. We have less young people coming in. So we as an industry need to embrace this as much as possible to make it more attractive. And there's no doubt that things like technology attracts the young. I think probably the biggest challenge is for us older people, myself included, to actually embrace it and work around it. And, I think we're pretty good at adapting. We're digital nomads, and I think we're getting better. But I think a lot of businesses are going to have to invest quite heavily, particularly on the AI side, in training and development and protecting the business and the people within it as well.
Not forgetting, obviously, Will Plummer there, risk management, payments, all part of technology. Where do you sit at the moment, and what are you particularly looking at trying to achieve for the business?
Hi, Ryan. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I mean, we profess to be data driven, so it is at the heart of everything we do, and very crucial to things. And I don't think we should lose the fact that people are at the heart of travel, but by its very nature, its complexity, its globality, you do need that technology. You do need to have a strategy for it. And it's very important to us. I mean, just picking up on something that James said, we actually build a lot of stuff in-house because the stuff we do is very nuanced. But increasingly, for certain parts, we are integrating more and more with third-party systems because kind of, why recreate the wheel that's already been built? So it's having a strategy to that and really embracing that. And then older generation, Claire, don't you just turn off and turn on again? Isn't that the very nature of how these things work? Look, I think it's really important. We've spoken a lot before about the rise of AI. I don't think we're quite there yet for everything. It's not yet, touch wood, taken over the world, but it's certainly helpful. And we're looking at it in terms of being able to more efficiently analyze the data within our system. So a lot of what we do around the risk flags, around some of the fraud, is knowing as accurately and as immediately as possible the threats we have within the business, because that's what our insurers want to see. AI helps that versus, manual intervention and manual review. You still need, at this stage, people inputting the parameters, being able to read the data and really understand that. But AI is able to sort of take over a lot of the heavy lifting on that. So it's an important part of the progress that we're taking, and it's exciting. It really is. And I'm interested to hear what Andrew's doing in terms of how they're approaching things, because they've obviously taken a spoiler alert. They've acquired a lot of stuff, but how important is it that there is competition, there is diversity in all of these things? We try and keep things as open as possible, so it's accessible to as many people as possible. It connects to as many other systems as possible, because that opens the market up to us. Just when we first started, we originally built a system that was very close to one very big client, and we found that we created a lot of rabbit holes that limited what we could do. So whenever we look at things, we keep things very open. So yeah, looking forward to a good pod today.
We are going to be looking at it for travel and hospitality industry. Is so fast. There's so many components to it, from the tour operators, travel agents, to airlines, to hotels, accommodation, short-term rental, to transport. It all needs to work together for it to be successful. And I think we particularly saw that during the start of the pandemic, where everything become closed down. And this is the reason why I set up Travel Market Life in the first place. So joining us today, we have Andrew Metcalf, who acts as CTO for Access Hospitality. His actual title is Product and Engineering, I've been told. So he's been with the business now since 2017, which originally was part of Guestline, which was acquired by Access Group. If you're not familiar with Access Hospitality, you might be with some of their other products, including Rota Ready, Res Diary, Procure Manager, Procure Wizard, and SHR. And one of the other things is that we need to let people know is that you actually run a small hotel down in Essex with your wife. So you're within the industry.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, thanks everyone for having me here. It's great to be here to sort of represent my little hotel, but most importantly, the huge software company that I work for, Access Group. So yeah, both sides of the fence is really interesting. Some of the things you're talking about, I'm experiencing on both sides. But yeah, it's a big, fast changing world, and we can go on and talk about AI and how we're approaching that. I hear that everyone wants to know what we're up to. But yeah, it's a time of big change. It's really, really interesting. So it's great to be here to explore all of that.
I mean, you've been going through so much huge change over the last few years. As they alluded to just a moment ago, Access Group acquired Guestline. You have since gone on an acquisition spree and created or expanded Access Hospitality, as I know the division is known now. So tell us a little bit more about the acquisitions and how this is enabling the industry to evolve.
Yeah, so I was the CTO of Guestline, and I was lucky enough to be asked to step up and do all of Access Hospitality. So I've been through the acquisition journey, as well as now sort of leading as we go and acquire businesses. I think the reason that we are looking at it is probably, even when I joined Guestline 7 years ago, kind of new to the hospitality industry, there's a lot of talk about best of breed and bringing everything together and so forth. And there's a lot to be said for that. And there's a continuum between best of breed by multiple providers and then having one platform that does absolutely everything. I think the reality is it shifts slightly within the two of those. And we are definitely looking at it going, probably now we're looking at AI, looking at how we consolidate data. The platform side of things, bringing them together is good to have as an option for our providers.
When you acquire businesses, are you looking at from the perspective of keeping them independent and keeping the technology independent? Or are you looking to sort of centralize it and consolidate what you have from a technology perspective?
Yeah, no, very much sort of to integrate them as much as we can. So if you think about, it's very financy, but a typical private equity play would be to buy a business, put it in their portfolio, nurture it, and then keep it as an asset, essentially, nurture that asset, and then sell it off for 3 times to 5 times more in a few years' time. Access, they're all forever businesses, as we call them. So we're there to own them for a long time. So we will integrate them. And I think it's an interesting concept because actually one of the biggest criticisms of UK tech firms is they've not scaled. But actually by taking that approach, you get to use the scale of Access to scale those individual brands, products. The trick is to get those businesses to not feel like a silo, so they don't feel like they're on their own and they've got to keep ploughing their own furrow and really give them the opportunity to explore more functionality, working, integrating and everything else. So yeah, no, we definitely see it as a way of broadening and adding functionality to a wider sort of suite of products. Yeah.
And this isn't just about making money. I mean, obviously that helps. But it's also about addressing those challenges that the hospitality industry faces and how those technologies knit together. I mean, what are some of those core challenges you're looking at it from a hotel and hospitality perspective to help their businesses be more successful?
So I often answer this question by sort of when you speak to a CEO of a management company of a range of hotels or a CEO of a chain, is actually, do you really think you should be hiring lots of IT people to try and plug things together to understand how that's going to work? Or are you better off kind of spending your money building, a better reception, all those sorts of things? Where are your expertise? And, you get to a certain scale, some of the real large global brands, they can afford to, they'll even build their own PMS, right? So that happens. For most brands, though, that's not there. So I see us as helping them not have to go down that really difficult route, but also do it as fast as they can. And the other side of it is with expertise, because it's really difficult to be an expert across marketing, distribution, how to run a restaurant, all those sorts of things. And even particularly for a hotel, you need a broad range of expertise anyway. So then you start throwing the technology side on it, it just almost becomes impossible. So I see us as that sort of enabling partner on the technology side. And, we will, to your point about whether we lock ourselves down. Yeah, we'd love to be able to tell it. Everyone's going to buy everything from us. And there are vendors who try that approach, but we know that's not possible. In fact, actually, it's counterintuitive for us to do that because we are quite acquisitive. One of the best ways to find out who the sorts of companies we might want to buy with is be very well integrated with them, have a very large section of customers. So actually, it's quite important for us that we do that interconnectivity. And I'd actually say, if you think about our platform so big, we can use third parties and everything else to make the platform even bigger. So if we're not making that easy, we're not actually providing that platform because we don't have all the functionality across the board. So no, we definitely see that as an enabler. The last point I'd make on this is actually as we look at some of the companies we've acquired, they would love to have done more third-party integrations and be more acquisitive, sort of working with all the sorts of different partners in the industry. The challenge they've got is they've never had the budget to invest in the APIs to make that actually possible. But what we're looking at now is how we can use our scale to help all of these products invest to actually create that connectivity. It'll be useful for us, our own interconnectivity, but also out to the industry, particularly as we look globally, because we're still largely a UK company that are going overseas now. So,
this is one of the things that we had a conversation about. You mentioned about, integrations, connectivity, the whole industry, the travel industry, dependent on that. you don't get the availability, the rates on Booking.com and Expedia without hotels being able to connect into that. Travel agents don't get the live availability without there being these connections behind that. Now, if every single hotel had to develop their own systems to be able to connect to the 500,000 travel agents around the world, it would be quite an expensive task, as well as, almost unfulfilling.
Yeah, 100% agree. I think one of the things I'm really interested in, Andrew, is one of the things I hear, and probably not from a hotel space, but certainly acquirers who aren't the fastest moving, things like payment gateways, and also more on sort of res technology, is a lot of companies have legacy technology that they've spent a lot of money investing on over the last 10, 20 years that is kind of does what they want it to do. And then you're presenting them with a proposition, but it's often management teams find it so hard to justify the expenditure, but cannot sort of focus on how they're going to implement it into their business. And that must be a challenge in terms of selling your product and going, well, this will help you. And yes, we can see that, but how do I go from this, which we built and kind of fits and we've written off now on our balance sheet, to something else? I'm interested in how you're seeing sort of legacy systems being replaced and the importance of doing that as well.
Also, some of the individuals you will be dealing with are, in your case, the small independent hotel who fears change.
Yeah, so let's break that down. So I think there's two different software solution types, and it's not quite this bucketed, but there's the hard to replace and the easier to replace. The hardest to replace that we would sell would be a point of sale system, particularly if it's across a large suite of food and beverage outlets, particularly integrated kiosk. It would be a property management system, so you've got all of your connectivity out, you've got your years of history of what reservations you sold last year, comparisons, procurement, those sorts of things. There's some of those systems that are harder to change, and definitely. And people will change them for a good reason, particularly if it's change of ownership, all those sorts of things. That will happen. The other way of looking at it, though, is sometimes about showing the benefits on some of those easier to change. So we talked about how we own a rotoring software. It's not as difficult to change your rotoring software across. At that point, then we can sort of say, look, what more do you want to do? I think as well, one of the key things about our conversations at Access are, yes, we're always looking to attract new companies, but how can we help our existing base more? And actually, it's a lot easier and cheaper to acquire that new revenue, but it's also more effective for the customer too. So really helping our existing base solving that. So we spent a lot of time trying to work out what the problems people are facing, and we learned one this week, which is they all want to use ChatGPT, but they're now all locking it down because they're really worried about all their sales data getting, because all the managers were writing up their sales reports and sending that out. So that's kind of like, oh, okay, that's all being shared with the world inadvertently. So we're going, okay, well, actually, we've got AI with Microsoft, which is locked down per customer. So actually, we can give them the one that protects them. They don't have to have that risk. So it's kind of like a new thing this week that we're going, actually, we can do that pretty quickly. So we're sort of rushing that out to particularly to those customers who want it. So it's twofold. Last unit thing, why do people change legacy tech? If it is so locked down, say change of ownership, the other side of it is often because they want to get rid of their hosting their own servers. So they want to go to the cloud. Maybe it's because actually they're looking at AI and going, we're blocked. We can't go any further. And that's definitely part of the way we build is actually you kind of need your data, your documents nearby each other, maybe not exactly in the same databases, but nearby each other to be able to create those sort of cross data set experiences. So the more informed kind of IT guys are particularly looking at that going, oh, this is a real challenge for us. So that is driving some change.
I imagine as well, it's for the smaller businesses, it's an inhibitor to growth as well, because if everyone now uses their mobile phones or apps to book, to reserve tables or, book an experience, and you're an independent who's still using a historic legacy system, it's an inhibitor now. So it's an easy sell from that perspective.
Yeah. And actually, I'm going to, again, that is a challenge. I think I'll switch it around as well. So I spoke to a chap called Max Starkov, who's in the sort of distribution industry for many, many years. And he sort of somewhat controversially says the independent hotel is dead because it can't compete. And actually, I sort of reflected on that. And I myself, when I spoke to the CEO of SHR, Rod Jimenez, and we basically said, yeah, but it's our job to stop that being true. Because actually, if we can do that for independent hotels, we'll obviously also be able to do it for groups. So how do we help them keep a pace without necessarily having to be experts in everything else? If we do our job really well, then we can help that. And obviously, I've got a very small independent hotel that's a wedding venue, so I'm kind of motivated to make sure that's true.
I mean, that is the beauty about the hospitality industry, particularly, the independent hotel sector. It has been family-run businesses. It's become much more challenging because of staffing and costs, but also getting their head around technology because they are hospitality professionals. Claire, we were having this conversation. It's a people industry. And there is that need to support that and try to make sure that if I go to a hotel, I want to have that personal experience. I want someone to be there. And there are times where I might just want to sort of like digitally check in and then away I go, but that might be a one-night stay in the city centre. But if I'm going away for a 2 or 3 day weekend, you want to know that you're going to be looked after, and the question is, do you actually get that from the bigger brands versus the smaller independent properties? And that's, as you say, something what we need to try to keep alive within our industry.
Yeah, definitely. And I think when we talk about training and all those sorts of things, actually, independent hotels can also suffer to have great staff who can make cocktails and all that kind of stuff. So really helping, and we do some software that helps bring that up to speed. Really helping those businesses get those staff in quickly, particularly if they're not in city centre locations as well. But absolutely, if you're an independent hotel, you have to win on service, I think, these days. So yeah.
What I'm seeing, certainly we're seeing in travel with growth of AI and new systems coming on board, and I'm sure it's the same in hospitality, and I do work with a few hotels who've seen this, is that AI actually is freeing up people's time. So there's more, but they can focus more on the customer experience because they're not being bogged down with some of the traditional administrative tasks that all jobs have. So I think there is a real benefit there, provided obviously it's done properly.
Yeah, we call them the zombie tasks. So if you walk into a hotel, if you walk into a hotel and you see someone literally printing out your card, then asking you to print it and then typing it back in, you sit there going, "Come on, there's well, certainly I do because I'm thinking you could buy our stuff, but that stuff is crazy." And then people can be elevated. So yeah, definitely there's a category of stuff that AI and that will help. And frankly, it's going to be more interesting to enter our industry and do that stuff. Who wants to be doing data entry all the time, to your point?
And it's not just AI. I mean, that's the whole technology play, isn't it? You were speaking about jobs before, but actually, if you get technology in to do these zombie jobs, then you can encourage more people into the wonderful people-based industry that is travel to do all the hospitality jobs. So I think that's important.
I mean, it's only a couple of years ago, I think I turned up to a Radisson hotel and they gave me a piece of paper and they told me to fill this piece of paper in with my name and my email address. And I was just there thinking, I feel so sorry for the administrator who now has to try to read my illegible handwriting. And I know I'm not going to receive that email or that invoice because they're going to get it wrong. They're going to read the L as an I or I as an L, and it's all going to be backwards. And it would have been a lot quicker had they turned a tablet round to me or sent me a link just to fill in those details, which we know are all auto-filled on our phones or wherever.
I like checking into a hotel, especially on the continent, and they go off and photocopy your passport. You just think, well, that could have been done. I can send you my passport. You can scan it on arrival.
Also, what happens to all those clipboards when you go into like spas and you have to fill out the form? Where do those pieces of paper ever end up?
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah.
Tell us a secret. Is there somebody locked in a room somewhere going,
Often there is, yeah, and that's it. So yeah, digitizing that has been a big part of our mission. And I have to say, I think in some sort of concession to the industry, I think it's the pandemic definitely sped this up. And Microsoft used to call it COVID speed. Actually, as a progression of some of this technology really accelerated. And it seems a few years ago now, but we dropped our roadmap. Also, like the whole industry, we're in chaos. We dropped our roadmap on some of our longer term initiatives and just smashed out our first version of the guest experience, which we were already kind of doing, but we just got everybody on it. And the reason wasn't that people wanted the option of checking in online or not filling in the form. They didn't want to die in reception by catching COVID. So it became a lot more urgent. I think particularly the older segment of the market were so worried about that. They were very, very keen to do that stuff up front. So we had a real opportunity to accelerate. So I think that's it. Now, obviously not all, okay, if you haven't done the work on your PMS in the past, as such a fabulous system like Guestline, you would be sitting there going, actually, it's difficult to get that. And you're probably on that journey now, but the hotels who had it have got there. So, sometimes you've got to be in the right place at the right time. A little bit of luck comes into it, but yeah, that's it.
I'm just picking up on what James said. I mean, for me, I find it, our industry, a lot of industries go on events and conferences and things like that. And I still find it remarkable how, that you've got a coach load of people turning up for a conference. And so you're sitting in reception for half an hour waiting to be checked in. They may have even sent you the piece of paper and you fill it in. And for me, that's just an obvious win for a hotel to be able to speed that up so that people, because also if you've been traveling for 4 or 5 hours, the last thing you want to be doing is standing in reception. You want to get to your room, unpack, get settled and get on with the day.
Yeah, so you're describing what is actually one of the harder things to fix, because actually group management is hard, because actually who's on the name of the reservation? Is it the company that booked it? Is it the event, the people who booked the event, so not the actual travel agent, or is it the individual? And not all software systems are able to have all three at once. And so that's something, again, we spent time trying to get that and trying to think through, actually thinking end to end of the data flow through your whole system to get to that end experience. You end up working back. And if I'm honest, most software companies have picked the independent traveler, the business traveler on their own. Then they've gone for the couple, but you still need to have both names in order for them to be able to check in on the kiosk and get their own individual keys if they turn up at different times. Then you've got families, then you've got multiple rooms, and then you get to the coach trips almost last. So it'll get there, but it just takes a while to get that kind of data flow all the way from the travel agent through. So
there's so much we've packed into this, and I can't believe it's gone so fast. But just one final question, really, over to you then, Andrew, is, how do you see the hospitality sector changing and evolving over the coming years? And from a travel and tourism perspective, how will that change the travel experience?
I think consolidation of tech companies will probably continue. Doesn't mean there's no space for entrepreneurs, absolutely, but I think it has to, because if you want to do AI, and I think one of the AI across a range of things, if we focus on the guest experience, if you want that end-to-end guest experience, you kind of need to have all of the endpoints in control. You don't have to own all of them, but you need to have either the control of a really strong third-party relationship or you're doing it yourself. And I think as we go through, that's why you'll see a lot of the sort of companies going out and buying a POS or buying a guest experience or whatever, a channel manager. So that's what we're doing. And we're even thinking about how we can provide software that other companies can use white labeled to themselves, because actually then we give them a helping hand. We don't need to sort of try and win their business away from, say, their PMS, where they can carry on that, but then they can augment with the stuff we've done. So actually we give them a better chance to grow. So yeah, I think it'll go towards a platform play, because data has to go through the right channels. And if it's through lots and lots of contractual relationships and GDPR agreements and it just doesn't happen. And we internally don't have those constraints as much. I mean, not zero, but as much. So yeah.
Andrew Metcalf, thank you ever so much for joining us from Access Hospitality. Final thoughts, guys, as we come to the end of that. I mean, there's a lot of sort of look at different types of technologies, consolidation, acquisition, the impact it's going to have on roles and careers as well as processes. Are there any sort of outstanding questions that you're still pondering?
No, for me, first off, big thank you, Andrew. It's great. I think we should just carry on asking him loads of questions, couldn't we?
We're here all day, yeah.
I know, this is excellent. Don't leave. But no, I think for me, one of the points that Andrew spoke about, which was technology is there still for the independent. It's still for the unique business, the entrepreneur who wants to create a business. Don't be fearful of those kind of the large multi-corp businesses who, yes, they can grow and use technology in their way to become bigger and bolder, but it's also there to help the entrepreneurs and launch their businesses and expedite processes and so on. So yeah, that's a big takeaway for me.
Yeah, and I think for me, as Andrew was saying about things like zombie jobs and how technology is so important, especially as the world gets smaller, there's more stuff going on. I think there'll be an increase in zombie jobs that can be solved by technology. But actually, that should be encouraged, because we can get back, and I know I've said it a few times, but to the very heart of travel, which is people, its experiences, but it's all set up by technology taking a lot of the workload. So brilliant. And yeah, thank you for coming in, Andrew. That was absolutely fantastic.
So you've been joining the Travel Market Life monthly trends review. You can check back at some of the others as we looked at HR, finance, social media trends, and what we predicted for 2025. Go to travelmarketlife.com.
For more, go to Travel Market Life. The music sensation by Zach Nelson is reproduced under license from Storyblocks. Travel Market Life is a Haynes Marcoms digital marketing agency production, serving the travel and technology industries.